Sometimes following your passions and following Jesus collides more easily than we think, especially when our ultimate goal is to have His light shine. Today we're going to hear from Angela Shoemaker.
Hi.
She is the owner and talented photographer of Unveiled Radiance. And today we're going to be taking a look behind the lens of how things got started for her and how her career is also her ministry. Angela, I'm so glad you're here and able to make it out today. I'm glad we can finally make this happen. We're trying to make this happen for a hot minute. So, guys,
She finally nailed me down. She's
yeah,
like, yes.
I mean, you guys are in for a treat. And I'm just so glad we finally get to have this conversation.
Me too. I'm excited. I really am. I'm impressed with this podcasting setup. I feel like, yes, I'm in the zone. I'm here. I'm in the real deal studio. Yeah. I like it.
Right. So tell us, when did you start taking pictures?
So I actually started taking pictures in high school. I kind of always had played around with the camera. Yeah. But I really started taking pics when I got on the coveted position of yearbook in high school, and started taking just of everybody at school, sports events, activities, and I was like, hey, I like this. I like this camera thing.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So, but what drew you to the actual art of photography?
So this is going to sound probably really vain, but I really loved doing videos of myself when I was younger. But really I loved doing videos because I thought I was going to work for ESPN one day.
Yes.
That was the big dream, the big goal. So I would always have my video camera on me. I would video all of our family stuff. I was practicing my reporting skills. So really I got drawn to video first. And so from that, when I was on broadcasting at West Monroe High School, I also joined the yearbook staff. And so I was actually the yearbook editor my senior year.
Oh, wow.
I was hey, I really actually like taking pictures as well. And so I kind of just dabbled in both. And I really kind of felt like I had a gift a little bit with both. And so I was like, I like this photography thing, this camera attached to my hand. And so I just kind of really enjoyed it and getting to kind of document people and things and funny moments and stuff like that. So I thought it was a good creative outlet for myself. So
yeah, my husband takes photography.
Yeah,
he does that a little bit on the side as well, and that's what he likes. He likes capturing the moments.
You can get some great, funny, sad, joyful, all the moments. So yeah,
all the in betweens. I always tell people for him, he's really good at the candid stuff.
I like that,
capturing the candids.
Yes, the candids are always the ones you want to put on your wall, or print out and keep and put in an album or use for blackmail in the future.
That too, for sure. Yeah,
for funnies against your friend at their wedding one day. Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah. All right. So, but what made you want to make it your livelihood? Because I'm hearing there, earlier, kind of more going towards the journalistic realm at first, but that's not what you do today.
That's not what I'm doing today.
What made you want to, pursue this photography bit as your livelihood?
So I wanted to. Probably since I was little, worked for ESPN, I always used to watch SportsCenter all the time. And I felt like I was good with people and I had a skill of talking probably way too much. And so I was like, I can use that and go on TV one day. And so all through college, that was the goal. My degree was going to be in journalism. And I really wanted to just go off somewhere, work for ESPN, do that. And I kind of, after graduation, realized that I wasn't quite ready to move off yet to the big city. And I kind of was just like, Lord, I really don't know, if this is really what I want to do now. And then it was kind of that pivotal moment. I feel like a lot of college people probably hit, and you're like, is this degree what I want to do? I just spent 4 years working towards it. And
yes.
And you're like, maybe not. And I should have changed my major maybe. And I never felt like I should change it. It was right when it was done, graduating from Louisiana Tech, I just thought, I just don't know if that's, for right now what I need to go do. So I was like, maybe I'll just get a job in West Monroe and stay here and figure it out and, just have a job that makes money so I can pay the bills. And so I was kind of in that unsure place. I just really didn't know if that was the path that I really needed to go anymore. And I was really loving taking photos because during college I had taken like friends' photos for like their senior pictures and for families at our church and stuff. And so I was kind of in that little bit of that lost season of life where I didn't really know which was the right path to take. So yeah.
Which I think, that happened to me.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't take a gap year, but I think to outsiders might be considered that. Yeah. But for me, it wasn't.
Right.
It was me, like, I was just living life and trying to figure out what to do with this degree I just got.
And you're just like, well, and it's just that whole change of like, you're stepping into this like adulthood life and you're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And like, how do I do this? And you know,
how do I actually make it?
Yes. And like, am I doing, and you think to yourself, I feel like as Christians, especially, like you wonder, like, am I making the right decision? Is this what the Lord wants for me? And you're like, what if I make the wrong decision? And what if I go the wrong way? Yes.
Yeah. Which that could be a whole other podcast.
Oh, yes.
And I probably will have that eventually.
I think that's a good one.
Eventually on that. Yeah. I feel like sometimes we put too much weight
I agree.
on that, especially that time of our lives. But yeah.
Yes.
But yeah, like just that kind of feeling like we're stumbling, but yet we're really not. It's just kind of part of the journey.
True. It's a true story. And I think as you get older, you kind of realize that it's not so much of making the wrong decision. It's just, you know, feeling like you're in obedience to like where the Lord has you and kind of following that path. And like sometimes, you know, there'll be rocky bumps on there and it will feel like you made the wrong decision. But I think as long as you're listening to him and where you're going, like, you know, it'll eventually journey out to where you were supposed to be.
I really felt like a kinship to Abraham.
Yes.
You know, because that's kind of what God did with him. And
he had a long crazy path.
But God called him to it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
That's
so
true.
like God's with this. As long as, like you're saying, totally 100% agree. And that's been my experience as well. Just as long as you're following God, you can't be led wrong.
That's true. That's a true story.
Right. So how long did it take for you to establish yourself and be able to do photography full time?
Wow. So this one is always when I feel like it's like, well, it kind of came out of nowhere really fast and like hit me in the face. And I was like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now.
Well, I'm glad you're able to catch it.
I'm like, all right. But after college, I went to work for State Farm in a lovely cubicle job. And I really, really quickly realized that working in an office was just not what I was cut out for. And so I was, I was kind of like, okay, I just don't know what I'm going to do in this moment. But when I decided to go full time into photography, finally, after, a long process, I was kind of like, hey, Lord, if I give you this, then you're going to show me this if this is what I'm supposed to go and do. And so I had graduated from tech and worked at State Farm for about almost like 8 months. And during that time, I had a friend that was like, hey, I have a friend getting married in Dallas and they need a photographer. And in my mind, I never thought about like wedding photography as a career. Like in my brain, I was just like, I guess people do have wedding photographers, but it's like a side job. It's not their full-time, career position. And so I was like, hey, I think I might want to like see if I would enjoy that. And so I asked him if I could do it. Having no experience, I YouTubed and watched and read blogs before I went.
Wow.
I had no camera gear. Like I rented everything for my first wedding. And it was actually in Dallas, Texas. And I brought 2 friends that actually have second shot with me since then over the years. And so went with like just basically a blind eye like into it. No pun intended. But like I really had no idea what I was doing. And so, but the day came and I was just like, oh man, I really, really enjoy this. Like I loved just everything about it. And so fast forward, I was like, all right, Lord, if I can have, 12 weddings for next year, I will, quit my job at State Farm and like go full time. And this wedding was in like October. And so by January, I had 12 weddings for the next year. And so it kind of just zoomed off from there. And and then it was like, ever since then, it's been like 25 plus weddings every year. And kind of just was like, oh, this is happening. This is going. This is going to be it. And so kind of almost a little bit was overwhelming because it kind of took off so fast, which was all the Lord. And I'm so thankful for it. But man, I don't think I was prepared as much for it to go as smoothly as it did.
I'm glad it did. Yeah. So was there ever a time that you considered like giving up on it or doing something else?
Oh, yeah. I think there's always days like I feel like any one of us that are human beings that exist are like sometimes your job just is not fun some days. And like, you feel like, okay, like maybe I should pursue something else or look into going into a different career path or take a break from it. And so I think there definitely, like after the first 2 years, I kind of felt like, am I really called to do this? Am I just doing this because I like enjoy making money, or is there a purpose in why I'm doing this? And I just felt like I knew like I was using my gifts that the Lord had given me, and that like I knew that was a place that I could love on people and just use my creativity. But there definitely were days where I was like, Lord, this is rough. This is hard. And I don't know if I can stick with this for a whole another year. So yeah, I think definitely hard times for sure. Yeah. In moments for sure.
So what kept you from giving in to that burnout?
I think just like, I mean, knowing that, you know, I was able to love on people, like I said, you know, in that moment, and really feeling like, you know, I knew that photography allowed me to be my best version of myself and really allow me to like to be goofy, silly Angela, but also be like the administrative side that I loved, like being organized and creating, you know, great wedding days, but being creative too and silly and using all those things the Lord given me, you know, to love on people well, like throughout, you know, my journey of photography. And so I feel like that kind of drew me into knowing like it really was a place that God had called me. And I knew that, there were going to be burnout days and like days where I really didn't want to do it. But like at the end of the day, I knew if I quit photography completely, I'd miss it like wholeheartedly and know like I really wasn't fully being able to be all that God had called me to be. So yes.
Man. That sounds really special, especially like, you know, loving on people. I don't think people would think of a photographer as that kind of person. Like, so would you mind elaborating just a little bit more about how you see yourself as, you know, loving on people or how that felt for you?
Yeah, I think too, like with, you know, we're all called to ministry. And I feel like sometimes with growing up in church or growing up in, you know, learning more about the Lord, that we sometimes feel like we can only be doing ministry if we're on a pulpit or if we're on a stage or, you know, volunteering at church, which I think all those are wonderful places that, that definitely the Lord can use us. But I also think we're all called to be light where we can be in our workplaces. And I think just, you know, loving people well is just showing them who Jesus is in like the simplest ways. And I think for me, like when I first started, I was really trying to find that line of not throwing Jesus at them, but still showing them Jesus. Yeah. Because I think Jesus can do the work for us. The gospel is always good news, and that will never change. And Jesus never changes. And so I think for all of us, I think a lot of it, like you said earlier, the pressure of feeling like we've got to, you know, win souls and win people, which we definitely want to, and bring people to salvation. But the gospel will do that for us if we just show them the outlet of who Jesus is in our lives. And so I think with photography and weddings, it was just, you know, showing kindness and loving them on a very big day in their life and showing them excellence by being excellent at what I did and making sure they had the best day that they possibly could give, giving 100% in like all the things that I could for them to have the best day, from walking through like the very beginning with them to the actual wedding day. And I think just being having integrity and really showing up. And I think they see that and having joy in the midst of a very stressful day.
Yeah, for some people it's really stressful. It can be really stressful. A bunch of money has been, a bunch of
finances being used,
different things, and a lot of things are out of that bride's control. So
and I think for most brides, you're spending most of the majority of that time is with your photographer that day. So I think for me, it was just, I was knowing the Lord had a position for me every Saturday to be with those brides and grooms and spend time with them, and knowing that I could pour out love and show light of who Jesus was in my own life to them. And if I could do that in whatever little small way that looked like, then I was doing what God's called us to do, which is, you know, go and be light into the world and share the gospel and however that looks.
Yeah. Cause I'm sure in little bit of weight. You're kind of like holding their hands a little bit, saying it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like being the calm person, and also the gesture if you needed to be to lighten the mood.
Sometimes you're like, get up, we've got to go. Like, yes.
Yeah, but because you do have wedding directors, but like you said,
some weddings don't. Yep.
But the photographer also kind of sets the schedule and the tone. So yeah, I can.
And you're the hype woman, as I like to say, or you're the okay, we all need to calm down. And let's bring in the peace for a second. Yeah. So I mean, but I think that's just the easiest way to love on people was in those small things like that. So
yeah, that's great. So are there any other ways that you see God through photography?
I really just, I feel like whenever I look in a camera, whenever I look through a lens, like I just think you see this new kind of visual of who God is through people and through places and through nature. And I really feel that a lot, especially when I get to travel and, just being out in the different places that I've seen and gone, and you catch like glimpses of just this big God that's made this big world that you're living in. And then like how he's created every individual differently. And it's just neat with weddings because you see how different each couple is, and like, their personality shining through, and seeing how the Lord made them tick or made them, love this or not like that, or, they enjoy these things and don't enjoy these things. And so I think just daily realizing like how God's made us all unique and made us all different, and all of our stories are different, and just being able to see that in a camera each time I pick it up and tell a different story about how he is and who he is with people and creation and, all those things. So I think God's in a lot of photography ways, his light and just, shining that on different places and people that we get to see through our lifetime. So it's a really neat thing to me. I mean, it may not be the same for everybody else picking up a camera, but
for people who don't know, like light has a very big part in photography. Yeah. I've learned a little bit about that from my own husband.
Your husband was giving you the insight, wasn't he?
I was like, okay, there's this, what's it called? Like when the sun's setting, the golden hour?
Oh yes, we love a golden hour.
The golden hour.
We love a good golden hour.
So like when your photographer is telling you what time to go there, it's for your good. It's for a reason.
A beautiful purpose. And
it's not just because we're not trying to be, they're not trying to be inconvenient. It's like, it's for your good. If you want the best out of your money, you need to go during that time.
Oh yes. The lighting is key. We want good light, the natural light. We want that golden yummy, I call it the yummy hour.
The yummy
it's
hour.
Just, delicious, that golden yellow orange wonderfulness. So yes, the light is key when we're taking pictures. So
yeah, that just is for me as a symbolism type person. I love metaphors, so or anything
I
like
do
that.
Too. I agree.
So just kind of seeing like, oh wow, how it's kind of played off each other with that.
Yes.
So I'm just take a pause for a second here. Like, man, like, why did you name your company Unveiled Radiance?
Okay. So speaking of light, since we're going into that, that was a hard thing naming my business. It was like,
what do you call this?
Most photographers, when I first started, they would name it after their name. And, I had a really great last name before I got married. It was Angela Gross. And so it's like, you can't name it Gross Photography. It'd just be really bad. So, I mean, we talk about symbolism and play on words. You want someone to come in who's gross and take your photos for your wedding to last a lifetime. So I really had to think on it. And actually I had a friend who I was like, what about Radiance, or you're radiant? And I was like, there's gotta be a verse with that, right? And so I looked up in the Bible, and it's 2 Corinthians 3:18, and it talks about, unveiling our faces before the Lord and being seen in his glory. And I was just like, that's kind of what I'm getting to do, is unveil these moments with people and let them kind of be seen to others who weren't a part of their day, or, don't always get to be around them, and really letting their character and light shine through, and how Jesus sees them. And so I was like, man, that's good. And so I was like, it's better than gross. So I'm going to go with it. So,
I love that.
So it became Unveiled Radiance. And so ever since now it is hard when I have to write a check, because they're like, how do you spell that? And it's like, is it I before E before I?
Oh, yes.
So there's so many going on. So that did get a little bit, but otherwise I was very thankful that came to me, and I just felt like it was the Lord, and it just ended up being the perfect name. So
and I just love it. And just hearing you say it makes me think about, just Hagar from the Bible.
Yeah.
And just how she named God, you're the God who sees, and just kind of thinking about we get the opportunity to highlight these moments where that might feel unseen or not maybe as important, like all those detail shots, but they are. It really kind of colors the mood and how God, he's got all of that kind of stuff. Right. So of course it matters. If it matters to God, I mean, it's going to matter to us, and those little moments do matter. I
think that's funny because, like, I think a lot of what we call the unseen moments, is the ones that the brides come back to me and say, I never even saw that until you showed us the picture.
Yeah.
And I was so glad you were there to see that. And it'll be like little moments of like, everyone always talks about first look when the groom sees the bride, and everyone's so excited to see the groom, which I am too. I've shed a few tears over some really sweet moments of grooms seeing their bride, but I always have now, I try to think about capturing the audience as well. And it's really neat to see like what the grandmother is doing, or what the mom is doing, or the groom's mom is doing at that moment, or even the groomsmen are looking at the groom, and the bridesmaids are crying. So I think just like those unseen things that sometimes we wouldn't even see as significant, and that we feel like sometimes, the Lord doesn't see those moments in our lives, and you're like, hey Lord, like we feel very unseen right now.
Yeah.
Or, we feel very like hidden from you, and we feel lost and where we're supposed to be in our purpose and our calling. And I think, the Lord takes those moments, and sometimes he's like, hey, I'm hiding them away from you right now, and you're not necessarily going to know that they were happening, but I'm working a bigger picture like at that moment. And I think, and just in my own life, I've seen him do that. And, sometimes thinking like, I don't think this is going anywhere. Like, I don't know if this is going to survive. Like, I don't know if I'm going to make my bills next month. But
then right at the moment, it's revealed,
Yeah. And the Lord comes through as he always does. So I
think it's awesome. And also just like how the name of it just kind of is, you're already putting the focus on Christ, and wherever it says, somewhere in Matthew, it talks about like, if you're pursuing the kingdom, then other things will come, all the things you might worry about as far as like taking care of yourself and having a roof over your head.
Yeah.
All these things will be taken care of if you're seeking that. And just by the simple fact of having your business not be your name.
Yeah.
It's already right from the get-go.
That's good.
Putting Jesus first.
And I wanted it to be founded on my faith and my relationship with the Lord. And like, I wanted people from the get-go to kind of even ask like, well, where'd that name come from? Like, that is a really different name, and that even just being a Kickstarter of having a conversation with people and being like, hey, like it actually comes from this verse, and getting a chance to open up from that. And like the littlest ways of like, like we said earlier, kind of infiltrating, that light where we can in the places that we can. So yeah, that's true.
Awesome. All right, so taking a little turn here, having a little bit more of a fun conversation, or sneaking that in. It's like, so, what have been I know you've been to many, many weddings.
Oh, yes.
So, what's your favorite and least part of a wedding?
Oh man, this one was hard when you gave me this one, because I was like, there's so many things I love, and there's so many things sometimes I don't love. But no, I really did. The least favorite was definitely like after shooting a wedding is being on my feet all day, because you're going pretty nonstop while you're shooting a wedding, and you're at high energy and high adrenaline, and when that 11th hour hits, and you're like, my feet's struggling and my back's hurting, and so sometimes that gets to be a little hard on long days. And I know there's other jobs that, like nurses and teachers, who also understand my pain of having to stay on your feet for that long period of time.
You start getting on the hunt for good shoes.
Yes, I did buy some new shoes, because I was like, getting in my 30s, I was like, this got to have some good shoes to stand in after this.
You hit the 30s, it just starts going. Things just feel different.
Yes. And sometimes hard days of weddings is when weather becomes an issue. Those always make it a little bit difficult in the lovely state that we live in, where weather is sometimes unpredictable. So sometimes that could be, hard. And least favorite thing about wedding days is crazy weather circumstances. But favorite, I just love just the fun of what a wedding day is. And like, yes, it's stressful, but there are so many great moments, and like you get to like almost be led into these really like intimate moments people experience. And it's a really neat thing that you can say like, I was there, and only like 4 other people were there when that happened. And then just, I mean, for me personally, I love to dance. So I love a good dancing reception.
Yeah.
And then wedding cake. I mean, you get to eat wedding cake every weekend. And I mean, the fact that I haven't like just died from a coma of eating so much wedding cake, but I mean, it's delicious. I'll tell you what.
What's your favorite flavor? How many different types have you had?
There was a lemon blueberry flavor one time that was absolutely delicious. But I usually end up loving all the groom's cakes because they're chocolate, and I love chocolate.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, give me a good chocolate cake, and I'm set. Like, yes,
here for the boys.
I'm here for the groom's cakes, guys. I'm sorry, brides, but
yeah,
I mean, I always love a good wedding cake, but the grooms just have that good chocolate love to it. So
awesome.
But yes, that's probably my favorite parts of a wedding day. So
what about because I know you do families and mini sessions. Like, what about your favorites for those?
I really love families because usually my families are end up being former bride and groom couples, so I get to kind of continue a relationship with them, and that's really special to me and meaningful, knowing that they still want to carry a relationship with me throughout their big moments of their life, like having a kid and growing with those children. And so it's always just fun to get back together with them and see how their kids have grown and
continuing the story.
Yes, and kids are funny. I've had some really, I mean, being a mom, just some funny moments at mini sessions, and I'm like, how do you not get on to this kid? He's funny or she's funny, and they're just like, oh, you will, trust me. But it's just good, funny, silly moments, and seeing families just getting to love on each other and also scream at each other get together and smile for the camera. And so sometimes you see a really lovely side of people if we don't do this now, there will be no snacks afterwards. And bribery also happens because you're hey kid, you got to smile for this photo for 5 minutes and you can get ice cream after. Yes. And so, but it's a fun time. It really is. It's always enjoyable to be around my family. So
yeah, that sounds fun. All right. So we talked about those great things. But what is the hard part, the business part that no one really sees? We see all these flowery pictures and we love those and those are wonderful. The business side of it though, what are some of the hard parts of that? Yeah,
the business side of being self-employed, I feel for a lot of people, they don't really, fully understand that unless you're a business owner and especially a self-employed business owner, because you're doing a lot of everything by yourself. The great thing about working for a company is you have employees or you have coworkers and, or you at least have a few people that are with you maybe 2 or 3 days a week. And so with photography, that was a shocker to me that I was just doing everything solo and mostly by myself. And there are photographers who hire assistants and all that. And I'm sure that I, could do that. But a lot of it is that I just know my work and how I want to edit it and done. And so it's just easier to do by myself. And so that part of it was very hard to learn at first, was just the business side of keeping track of emails and contacts, and you're having meetings and taxes and learning that the government takes all your money.
Yes.
So, and I think a lot of people would be like, well, Angela, you get paid so much or you get, whatever. And I'm like, all that goes away when they take it from you at the end of the year. And just the hard things of your schedule is very different from people. I work weekends and not only work weekends, but work pretty much every day during the week. So it's a very 24-hour, 7 days a week type field. You're not actually working 24 hours, but it feels that way.
You have to have this difference of discipline with time and time management.
Time management is huge. And I feel like it's really interesting. I have a couple of photographer girls that are just getting started that have kind of reached out to just kind of get help and mentoring on how do I get started and how to do this. And I tell them from the beginning, I'm be organized and have time management, because it's taken me a while to learn that side of it, because I was getting burnt out so badly. And I struggle with perfectionism very much. That was very hard to not feel like I had to please everyone all the time and be there 24/7 for my brides, which, yes, I want to be there whenever I can. But I also had to learn that there had to be a balance of I'm not going to text you at 10 o'clock at night. Or, I have to limit to saying, I can only take 2 or 3 weddings a month, and I have to leave myself a weekend to have a break. Because for me, I'm a people person. I love to be with people and hang out. It was I was missing life events working on the weekends.
Because you're with other people's life events.
Yes. And so it was very hard to, learn all that and realize that there was a key of balance. And the Lord also wants our lives to be balanced. He doesn't want us to be over busy. And I think that, especially in this day and age, it's hard not to feel like you're just so so overwhelmed by busyness of life. And and I think I've learned that in the last, 2 years of being married too, is that being a newlywed is that, I wanted to make time for my husband and like to have time with him, and us learning the curve of how our relationship works with me working weekends and him working a full-time, 8 to 5 job during the week where we don't see each other. And so that also was a learning curve as well. And then just, keeping relationships and friendships that you want, that are important in your life, that you want to make time for, and church and being involved. And so like all of that part of business was just like, wow, I did not know this existed.
Yeah. And I think sometimes even like if it's a creative type business, like any type of art, whether you're an artist, I have our good friend Molly.
Yes,
she's an artist.
I love Miss Molly. She's been at a couple weddings of mine, painting some live paintings.
That, like, she's that kind of person, or someone who does like makes t-shirts or does jewelry. Things that Bethany.
Oh, yes. Did. Talented Bethany. I feel like she could do anything. We literally, her hands touched and she would probably make gold. So,
but those kind of things, people don't, oh, that's just cool. But they don't realize those other things you just mentioned that go into that as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and you sacrifice a lot with that, I think, too. You sacrifice your time, and you sacrifice, for me, like my calendar's filled a year in advance. So it's like things that, I don't get to just be like, if I want to take off a Saturday, be like, I'm not going to be at your wedding next Saturday because I just want to go to a football game. And so, for me, that was hard to be like that. Things were so set in stone that I couldn't just go and, do things that I wanted to do sometimes, and learning that balance, and then just learning that sometimes there's struggle months, and with finances of being self-employed, and like, that with the weddings, you have to hope and pray they come in this month, and if you don't have one that month, it's like you don't get paid.
Yeah, you don't work, you don't get paid. Like, just have that security,
Yeah, and it's very much pushing, I think, your faith and trusting the Lord, like in those areas of your life. And I think especially for type A personalities, and probably a lot of firstborns who like to be in control of things,
or Enneagram 3s,
or Enneagram 3s, aka me, who are very much like the Lord teaching you lessons of, hey, you've got to let this go and understand that I will take care of you. And I think, letting him prove himself in those ways.
Yeah.
So
that's good. Yeah. All right. So we talked about some of the bad, but how we worked through it. Yeah. So back, another fun question is what's one of the coolest places you've ever been for a shoot?
This was also a hard one, Brandy, because I've loved a lot of places that I've gotten to go to. But, and I've been so blessed to really, have some awesome, amazing locations to shoot in. I've shot in almost like 20, 30 different states in the U.S. and 4 countries. And so, but Ireland and Switzerland probably topped the list.
Oh, yeah.
Ireland was just my first international wedding, and it was just an amazing experience. There was like rainbows in real life in Ireland, and I was like, this is a movie. So I kind of like, you can't really knock seeing a real rainbow in real life in Ireland. And then Switzerland was just stunning, like mountains, the bluest water, and we had just a great trip with the bride and groom. And then in the U.S., Zion National Park, Jackson Hole.
I've been to Jackson Hole.
Jackson Hole was the Grand Tetons. That was an elopement, and it was my first elopement. And they're still to this day like one of my closest couple friends. And she actually works in weddings now and does events. And so it's just neat to see like that relationship as well. And so, but man, just there's a lot of beautiful places that the Lord's made that I've gotten to enjoy. Yeah. So I'm very thankful.
Awesome. So what has God taught you throughout your career?
Oh man, so much. I feel like I could write a book about how much.
Is that what should we be expecting?
I don't know. I could also write a memoir about some really funny experiences from weddings, but I have thought about that.
I have to check in with you on those later.
But I think the Lord just spoke probably just his faithfulness and learning that he's always going to be who he says he's going to be. And I feel like, like I was talking about earlier, just learning to let go of control and learning to know that the Lord's gifted you in this place of picking up a camera and trusting that he's going to lead you along the way. And for me, that's what it was. And for you, it can be, whatever your career looks like, or being a mom, or being a great nurse or a great teacher, and any avenue that you're in. I think just trusting that the Lord's going to be faithful to what he says he's going to do and his promises. And I know sometimes that's very hard to see, like I was saying, when we don't see the bigger picture that God's making and doing and creating in that moment. And definitely speaking all this to myself, because still to this day, I'm like, there are days where I'm like, what are we doing, Jesus? Like, okay, well, I really don't know what you're doing up there, but can we just figure it out? Because I want to plan and I want to know and I want to figure it all out, A to Z, and have it all done. But I think just that, and just knowing like his goodness is always there, and the history of who he is that he's going to be a loving father. He's going to be a provider. He's going to keep you safe. I think if we just lay all of our, fears and anxieties and stresses at his feet and trust him, I think that he just takes our hand and takes us along the way. So I think especially in learning about running your own business, that's the biggest key, is just trusting him and knowing that he's going to take care of it all. And really, I think too, is knowing that God's a big God, and that we can dream big with him, and that we can do big things that we may not see how that's going to happen. But like for me, I had no clue that I'd one day get to travel the world from a little tiny thought of I'll shoot photos for fun,
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes just also letting the Lord know your big dreams, and know the things that are deep inside your heart that maybe
and seeing how he can grow you,
that you think it can't happen, and trust him with it, and kind of be like, all right, God, well, I think you can do it. And and sometimes they don't come to fruition, but sometimes they do, and it's a chance for us to really use that to tell others of like how good God's been in our life, and how faithful he's been. So it all leads back to that. And I think just, being able to share the gospel in whatever avenue of our life that's looked like. And for me, that's been being able to say God's been very faithful in everything that I've done, and that he's been a good God. So
Awesome. Love that. Well, Angela, thank you so much for sharing your story today. I just love hearing about how you've been able to shine your light for Jesus onto others, and just been so uplifting. And I think what anybody can probably take from today is how like you can shine your light anywhere.
That's true. I think that's like the key is just being light where you can be light. And that's even in like, if you feel like it's insignificant, places that you get put in life, I think that you still have the chance to be who Jesus has called us to be, and love people well where you're at. So, but my name is Angela, and this is my story of the middle.
I'm your host, Brandy Bostic, and you've been listening to Season 3 of the Up From Up podcast. If you're interested in getting a little extra, check out my Patreon account in the show notes for ways to get merch and other cool perks.
In Psalms 40, verse 2, he brought me up from a desolate pit, out of the muddy clay, and set my feet on a rock, making my steps secure.